It's a great pleasure to welcome you all, participants from many different parts of the world, a multitude of countries, to this Arctic Circle virtual on the role of Japan in Arctic cooperation. We are especially honored to have today two distinguished Japanese leaders who are joining us directly from Tokyo for this Arctic Circle virtual. First of all, Her Excellency, the Minister of Justice and the Chief Secretary of the Parliamentary League of Arctic Frontier Study, YŌKO KAMIKAWA, has long been an active participant in Arctic cooperation in Japan. And during my visit a few years ago, I was honored to engage with her in very constructive meetings, which have led to enhanced participation of Japan, not just in the Arctic Circle, but also in Arctic cooperation in general. And then, in addition, my good friend, Dr. Tsunami, the president of the Sasakawa Peace Foundation, is the other speaker today, coming directly from Tokyo. And he was the host of the extraordinary conference that took place in Tokyo 3 years ago, I think now, approximately, where he invited me and the CEO of the Arctic Circle to join him and distinguished participants from different parts of the world. And it was in that visit that I launched the idea in our meetings with Japanese ministers that following the Arctic Council Ministerial meeting of science ministers who had taken place in Berlin during the Arctic Council presidency of Finland, Japan and Iceland should co-host the next science ministerial meeting on the Arctic. And this proposal was well received by both the government of Japan and the government of Iceland and the respective ministers. And if it was not for the pandemic, we would be gathering in Tokyo, joining a multitude of science ministers from Europe, from all the Arctic states, from Asia and other parts of the world. The ministers will, however, hold their virtual ministerial meeting a few weeks before the foreign ministers of the Arctic states come together in my country, including the Secretary of State of the new Biden administration and the long-standing foreign minister of Russia. And this meeting in my country in a few weeks' time will be the first major international meeting on the Arctic since the Biden administration took power in Washington. When we proposed in the ministry in Tokyo that Japan and Iceland should co-host the next Arctic Science Ministerial meeting, we were trying to consolidate a new formula for Arctic cooperation. There was no general practice of Arctic ministers of science to come together. But the United States had, during its presidency of the Arctic Council, invited to such a meeting. And then during the chairmanship of Finland, as I said before, Germany as an observer state and Finland as the chair of the Arctic Council decided to hold a second such meeting. But there was no general tradition for this. So our proposal to the government of Japan and Iceland was that our two countries would consolidate this new tradition by Iceland as a chair country of the Arctic Council and Japan as a prominent observer state would hold the third Arctic Science Ministerial meeting, which is taking place very soon. And let me use this opportunity to urge Russia as the next chair of the Arctic Council. And Russia will take over later this month at the ministerial meeting in my country, to urge Russia to approach an observer state to co-host the fourth such science ministerial meeting. And if Russia has some difficulty in finding an observer state to join it, the Arctic Circle, and I am sure the Sasakawa Peace Foundation will be willing to help in that endeavor. But let me also mention at the opening that following this extraordinary gathering that the Sasakawa Peace Foundation brought together in Tokyo, which led to the ministerial meeting, which is now going to take place, we invited the then Foreign Minister of Japan, Taro Kono, to come to the Arctic Circle Assembly in 2018, where he delivered a major keynote speech at the opening of the assembly on Japan's role in the Arctic. All of this taken together demonstrated a comprehensive and forward-looking commitment of Japan to Arctic cooperation. And then, in addition, to consolidate this even further, the Sasakawa Peace Foundation and the Arctic Circle jointly agreed to hold an Arctic Circle forum in Tokyo in relation to the ministerial meeting. Such forums have been held in the United States, in Britain, in Singapore, in Korea, China, in Canada, in Greenland. They are the second most important arm of the Arctic Circle platform, and we are looking forward to arriving in Tokyo once the pandemic allows us for the Arctic Circle Japan Forum, co-hosted by the Sasakawa Peace Foundation and the Arctic Circle. So all of these, my dear friends, illustrates that the topic of today, the role of Japan in Arctic cooperation, is indeed a very formidable topic with a lot of dimensions of actual events and cooperation and further plans and vision, which we will discuss during this Arctic Circle virtual. We have already received fascinating questions from a number of countries, some of them relating to Japan, some of them relating to the growing Asian cooperation in the Arctic, because not only does Japan, but also China and Korea actively engage in the Arctic, but also we see trilateral consultations between Japan, Korea, and China on its Arctic policy. So whereas 10 years ago, it would have looked a bit strange to have such a discussion as we are having today, and among its major topics being the wider Asian participation in the Arctic, it has now become, in the third decade of the 21st century, absolutely crucial in order to understand the future of Arctic cooperation. So with those words, I welcome you all to this Arctic Circle virtual. I thank our distinguished speakers who are joining us in the evening in Tokyo for their participation. And with these words, I will give the floor to Her Excellency, the Minister, YŌKO Kamikawa, to make her opening statements, which will then be followed by Dr. Tsunami. And then we will take questions, some of which have already been put to the Arctic Circle Secretariat. But if the audience from different countries wants to send questions to the Secretariat during these discussions, we will also be able to receive those. So thank you again for being with us today. And with this word, Your Excellency, Minister Kamikawa, please make your opening statement.
Good morning, everyone. Good evening, everyone in Tokyo. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. ÓLAFUR RAGNAR GRÍMSSON, for your kind introduction. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude, especially to President GRÍMSSON, the Arctic Circle Secretariat, and the Sasakawa Peace Foundation for the opportunity to participate in the Arctic Circle Japan Forum Prelude today, in association with the Third Arctic Science Ministerial, ASM3. The ASM3, co-hosted by Iceland as the chair of the Arctic Council, AC, in Japan, will take place in Tokyo for the first time in Asia for 2 days from tomorrow. I would like to express my sincere gratitude once again to President GRÍMSSON and many others for their efforts to realize ASM3 in Japan. I hereby emphasize the following 2 points. First, the Arctic region must be the embodiment of international cooperation, which may be called ocean of collaboration. Observational data from the Arctic region is of great significance in understanding and predicting the global climate change. With not only AC member states and indigenous peoples' organizations, but also many other participating countries, we will send out a powerful message under the theme of Knowledge for a Sustainable Arctic to build an international cooperative system for the future, which is necessary to make the Arctic region open for international cooperation in scientific research. Second, this is an excellent opportunity to connect international ties in the field of science in the Arctic region. Unfortunately, the ministers of the participating countries were not able to visit Japan due to COVID-19, but I try to do my best continuously deepen our relationships with each country through joining the online events, including this webinar. Japan, as a maritime nation surrounded by the sea on all sides, is the closest Asian country to the Arctic, directly connected there through the sea. This geographical position makes Japan susceptible to climate change in the Arctic. However, the Arctic region still has so many areas where our vacuum in observation data that we lack of scientific knowledge compared to other ocean areas. It is urgent to expand observations and research further. Japan has been conducting observation and research in the Arctic region through international collaboration at sites such as Ny-Ålesund in Norway, which were established in 1991 in Alaska. We are also working on global observations in cooperation with Antarctica. These high-quality continuous observation data have contributed to the prediction of global climate change. I'm proud of this great contribution. The latest Arctic policy of Japan has been introduced in the third basic plan on ocean policy approved by the cabinet in 2018, which was based on the 7 basic perspectives of Japan's Arctic policy decided by the headquarters for ocean policy in 2015. The latest Arctic policy of Japan consists of the following 3 pillars. First, research and development through strengthening the observational and research system pertaining to the Arctic region. Second, international cooperation through proactive participation in the formulation of international rule. And third, sustainable use of the Arctic sea route. The Japanese government is working all together with private entities and research institutes for those goals. Today, I would like to introduce Japan's measures, especially the first and third pillars, that is, observation and research, and utilization of the Arctic sea route. As I mentioned earlier, Japan has been steadily and continuously conducting Arctic observations through international cooperation. Since 2011, the Japanese government has supported them as a national projects. In the Arctic Challenge for Sustainability, ARCS-2, which was launched last year, we plan to further accelerate the collaboration between oceanographic and space observations in order to understand the dynamics of the Earth. This will enable us to get a better three-dimensional view of the Arctic region and a better bird's-eye view of the Earth. The data acquired by Japanese researchers will be made available to the world through the Arctic Data Archive System, ADS, and will be utilized by many stakeholders in the world. In addition, social science researchers will also participate in the project to understand how the living conditions of the people in the Arctic region, including the indigenous people, will change due to climate change. The goal is to share the current situation of the Arctic region internationally and recognize it as a common issue for humankind. It is also necessary to acquire and share the data on the Arctic Ocean through international cooperation among many countries. The Japanese government begins to construct the Arctic research vessel for Arctic research this year to serve as an international platform. In the 5 years leading up to the vessel's commissioning, Japan will accelerate discussions on the international framework for strengthening the international observation network and the data sharing system for the Arctic region, including the strengthening of the Sustainable Arctic Observing Networks, SEION, to fill the largest observation data gap on the planet. Due to the Arctic sea ice decline, there have been a growing interest in use of the Arctic sea route as a new option for marine transport. For example, maritime transport routes linking East Asia and Europe through the Arctic sea route can shorten the voyage to about 60% with a lower risk of piracy compared to the southern sea route via Malacca Straits and the Suez Canal. So I think it can be called Sea of Hope. Of course, we have to use the Arctic in sustainable way because the Arctic itself is a fragile environment. With that in mind, Japan holds regular meetings of the Council of Industry, Academia, Government collaboration on the Arctic sea route, which consists of private entities, research institutes, and administrative agencies. This council promotes the development on an environment for Japanese companies to use the Arctic sea route by providing and sharing information on trends in related systems in coastal countries and in the use of the Arctic sea route. In addition, by utilizing Japan's science and technology, as well as observation data, which are highly appreciated by international community, we are working to establish a navigational support system that will be useful in ensuring the safety of navigation in the Arctic Ocean, aiming for sustainable use. Under the difficult COVID-19 situation since the spring of 2020, which has made it difficult to travel abroad, the Arctic Circle and Iceland, as the chair of the AC, have actively been organizing online meetings and seminars to ensure the opportunities for communication and to maintain ties with the people relevant to the Arctic issues. I would like to thank all of you for making this meaningful webinar. As all of you know, President GRÍMSSON established the Arctic Circle on his own initiative in 2013, and I would like to pay tribute again to his foresight in discussing Arctic issues from a multi-stakeholder perspective from the beginning. It is important to continue and develop international efforts and cooperation in the Arctic region. I look forward to the consecutive progress of Track 1.5 diplomacy initiated by the Arctic Circle Secretariat and the Sasakawa Peace Foundation. Especially young people who will be the leaders of the future need to take a proactive role in global environmental issues. I would like to suggest holding a youth forum where young people can learn about the Arctic environment and SDGs. And I believe it is also important to deepen discussions and exchanges at the political level. In order to demonstrate leadership by politicians, I, together with President GRÍMSSON, would like to contribute to strengthening exchanges and stimulating discussions. I heard that if the situation permits, President GRÍMSSON is planning to visit Japan for the Arctic Circle Japan Forum to be held this autumn. I sincerely look forward to seeing Mr. President again after the international community will have overcome COVID-19. Thank you very much for your kind attention, especially to the all listeners.
Well, thank you very much, Minister, for your comprehensive and visionary and very interesting statement, and rich in material, and towards the end, fascinating ideas. And thank you for the invitation to meet you in Japan later this year. So it's now my honor, before we take questions from different parts of the world, to invite our good friend, Dr. Tsunami, the president of the Sasakawa Peace Foundation, to make his statement. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President GRÍMSSON. And I just wanted to first of all echo the Minister Kamikawa by thanking you and your leadership and the Arctic Circle for really helping Japan in really making Japan one step closer to the Arctic in many ways. As you mentioned, that the turning point, of course, for us is your visit to Japan for the first time in 2018. It is our privilege for an honor to have you as a guest for our forum in Tokyo in that winter. And during that visit, as you mentioned, it was just a whole sort of process of Iceland and Japan in a very good cooperation and in hosting this Arctic Science Ministerial meeting here in Japan, which will take place starting tomorrow for 2 days here. And with that, the Sasakawa Peace Foundation is very honored to have the co-host of the Arctic Circle Forum. Unfortunately, of course, this is all event is because the COVID, it turned out to be the virtual. So, but we'll be holding the Arctic Circle Forum in Japan later, hopefully later this year, so that we can physically and have the meeting in Japan. But today, because of the Science Ministerial meeting happening here tomorrow in the same place, here in this Tokyo, that we wanted to have the prelude to the this Japan Arctic Circle Japan Forum. And once again, I would like to thank the Arctic Circle and the President GRÍMSSON for enabling us to have this virtual meeting and seminar workshop today. I just wanted to really add a few things about more in the perspective from the private foundation's view on Japan's role in the Arctic. Since our President GRÍMSSON's visit to Japan, the Sasakawa Peace Foundation's mission on the Arctic really been sort of following what the Arctic Circle has been doing in terms of creating the platform for the dialogue of inviting not only the Arctic nations, but also the observer states like Japan, China, Korea, and other friends that are interested in working with the Arctic to have the opportunity to have a dialogue at an equal basis with other Arctic states. And I think this is a very important role that the private sector foundation has been providing in able to connect this stakeholders and actors in a manner that the government is very difficult to do. And so we have been working on the Arctic project since 1993, first on the project on the possibility of Northern Sea route with our friends in Norway and Russia. But since our work with the Arctic Circle, that we have been really trying to become the platform, at least this part of the world, on bringing the, on the one hand, scientific community working on the Arctic, and also the policy making side, to really have the opportunity for dialogue in discussing what Japan's role in the Arctic, and also with other friends, our friends in the, particularly in Asia. So, and also, as Minister Kamikawa mentioned, that at the moment, Japan is really working on the drafting the fourth basic plan for the ocean policy. And in it, the Arctic will be a big part of our basic plan. And we are now working with the government on drafting this new basic plan for on the ocean, which covers Japan's role in the Arctic. And that many of the essence of this policy discussion at the moment are already introduced by the Minister Kamikawa, starting with our new plan to build the new icebreaker science vessel as a platform for international scientific cooperation and so on and so forth. So with that, I'd like to just invite questions and bring back Mike back to the President GRÍMSSON. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tsunami. We are indeed looking forward to further cooperation with the Sasakawa Peace Foundation under your leadership. The addition of new research vessel by Japan to the international scientific Arctic community is, of course, a formidable contribution. And I am sure in the coming years, we can continue this effort in many different ways. We have already, as I said in the beginning, received very interesting questions from many countries. So if I can ask our distinguished Japanese speakers, perhaps to give rather short answers than long, so we can have many of these questions answered. But if I may, I will start with a question from my own country, which I will put to Minister Kamikawa. Japan, China, and Korea have held high-level trilateral discussions on the Arctic. How is this dialogue evolving, Minister?
Thank you very much for your first question. First of all, Japan considers it of great importance to cooperate as closely with all relevant states and stakeholders of Arctic issues. The same goes for our neighbors, China and the Republic of Korea. Japan, China, and the Republic of Korea have held trilateral dialogues on the Arctic at the ambassador special representative level since 2016. This is based on the joint declaration for peace and cooperation in Northeast Asia that was issued on the occasion of the 6th Trilateral Summit in 2015. Well, through the trilateral high-level dialogue meetings on the Arctic, the three countries share three common recognitions. First one is, it is important to contribute to international forums, including the Arctic Council. Secondly, it is necessary to maintain peace, stability, and constructive cooperation in a rule-based manner. Third, the promotion of trilateral cooperation on Arctic issues. On the occasion of the latest fourth dialogue meeting, the Trilateral Arctic Expert Group meeting was held provisionally. On the occasion of the latest fourth meeting held in the Republic of Korea 2019, the three countries agreed that Japan would organize the next one, and its schedule would be adjusted later through diplomatic channels. Due to the COVID-19 situation, cross-border travel has been significantly restricted. There was no opportunity to hold this high-level meeting in the last year. Japan is now considering how the next meeting shall be, including its format and schedule, watching carefully the current situation.
Well, thank you very much for this information. Let me reiterate what I said at the forum, Arctic Circle Forum in Korea, when all the three ambassadors of Japan, China, and Korea were on the platform, that the Arctic Council has invited those three countries to have observers at the meeting of the Arctic Council. The rest of us would be honored sometime in the future to be able also to have observers, even every now and then, at these trilateral meetings. And of course, the Arctic Circle would be happy to facilitate such a meeting during one of the Arctic Circle assemblies that take place in Iceland. But we have a second question from Norway, which actually relates to this as well, Minister. And it is, what role does the Arctic play in relations not only between Japan, China, and Russia, but also North and South Korea? If you can perhaps add a wider perspective to your first answer.
Thank you very much for the second question. I recognize that the Arctic is not a place for conflict, but a place for of cooperation. In the context of escalation of climate change, there is no doubt that the Arctic Ocean is a place of global importance. Therefore, it is necessary to create opportunities for dialogues cooperatively and discuss issues such as global warming, not only with Northeast Asia and Russia, but also with the rest of the world.
Okay, then Dr. Tsumami, we have the third question from the chief of the Ocean Affairs Council of Taiwan. And it relates to the policy of Japan with respect of helping other non-Arctic countries and entities to engage in Arctic affairs. So if you could perhaps explain what is the view of Japan towards a wider participation by non-Arctic states and regions also, because we have not only states, we have Quebec, we have Greenland, we have Scotland, we have other parts of states taking part. Dr. Tsunami.
Yes, it's not my role to answer the government position, I guess,
No, of course not.
on this side. But my view, of course, is that of course we are very in a great position to invite non-Arctic states, especially our neighbors, and including Taiwan and other countries and regions that are interested in the Arctic, because of course the Arctic is not just regional, but it's a global issue, particularly in the climate crisis that we have been addressing, that and also our global effort in understanding what's going on in the Arctic because of the urgency of the climate crisis and how impact is being seen tremendously in the circumpolar region. And it would make a global effort to understand the mechanism of this impact from the climate crisis. And in this global effort, Japan should be able to, of course, collaborate with other scientific communities, especially like hosting this Arctic Science Ministerial meeting here in Japan. But also we have already hosted several international meetings on the scientific meeting in really understanding or advancing our understanding of the circumpolar system. So I think and as a private foundation, we always work hard to bring in other interested parties, especially Taiwan or even Pacific, small island states in the Pacific, for instance, which they are also part of this global system and having been affected by the climate crisis.
Well, let me follow this up with a question we have received from the CEO of the Refreeze the Arctic Foundation in the Netherlands. Mm. And this question refers to the fact that both his host country, the Netherlands, and Japan share the characteristic that a big part of the population lives in flood areas. And as we all know, with the increasing melting of the Greenland ice sheet, the sea level will rise everywhere in the world. So the fundamental question is, how can we keep the ice in the Arctic? And how is Japan going to contribute, keeping the ice in the Arctic to prevent flooded areas in the coming decades? Right.
Maybe Minister Kamikawa may add some points from her view, but Japan has announced the zero emission strategy by the Prime Minister Suga recently, and we are very much committed in really addressing this global challenge of climate crisis through more actively engaging in sustainable energy use, or even accelerating some of the innovations and science and technology in the area to really help mediate and solve the problem of this climate change issue. So I think not only the Arctic, but we are also committed in really contributing in terms of solving the issue of global warming. And I think that would be a very important contribution, hopefully from Japan's side, but also from our friends around the world. Well, as we all know, whether the ice keeps on melting in the Arctic will depend more on the non-Arctic states rather than on the Arctic states. This is the paradox of the Arctic, that if the use of fossil fuel continues in other parts of the world, the ice will keep on melting, and this will lead to floods and the extreme weather, not only in Japan and the Netherlands, but everywhere in the world. But let me also put to you, Dr. Salami, and then I have a question to the minister. But since I have you on the screen, let me put this question from Russia to you. It's from a researcher and a scientist in the Russian Academy of Sciences. What do you consider the most significant achievements of Japan in implementing the 2015 Arctic strategy, when you look back at the last five or 6 years? Well, in Japan, since this 2015 Arctic strategy, we were able to create a scientific platform of inviting the various parts of science that are relating to the Arctic research under the same umbrella. And we are hoping to extend this umbrella to include more social science and other research bodies into solving or even creating more contribution through our scientific research in the Arctic. And I think one of the most achieved area since the our Arctic strategy is because of our effort in the science and scientific infrastructure, including now we have planned to build the new icebreaker as a research vessel.
Well, thank you very much for that. And now, Minister Kamikawa, we have a question from the Humboldt University in Germany. And it refers to the very important participation by Japanese scientists and institutions in the historic Mosaic expedition, which was not only the largest Arctic expedition ever held, but also the first time in the history of humankind, or the history of the planet, where scientists were able to observe and do research on the area close to the North Pole during winter times. And the work on that data is now going on. So the question is, how is further international Arctic scientific cooperation prioritized within the Japanese government?
Thank you very much for your question. I am not in a position to express the official message of the Japanese government. However, I recognize that international scientific cooperation is important in Arctic research. As a member of the Parliamentary League for Arctic Frontier Study, I led the discussion on the formulation of the Arctic policy. And I identify science technology as one of the need to address Arctic issues. The third basic plan on ocean policy that I mentioned before, which was approved by the cabinet in 2018, we set the 3 pillars I mentioned: research and development, international cooperation, and sustainable use of the Arctic. So I emphasize the construction of the Arctic research vessel that I showed right now, which is one of the major efforts of Japanese Arctic research, will be launched this year. The vessel will function as an international platform for researchers from all over the world, which will also promote the activities of early career researchers as a place for international observation and research activities. We would like to emphasize this kind of international platform for especially younger generation to participate in the international collaborate research field. So we, especially the government, they make a budget for this big project.
Well, thank you very much for that. Let me try in the time we have left to put a few more questions to you. If I can follow this up, Minister, with a question from the United States of how Japan, if Japan sees any changes in the work of the Arctic Council with Russia taking over the chairmanship, which of course will be the first time since the Arctic became a geopolitical entity of great interest that Russia has the chair of the Arctic Council. And maybe Dr. Tsunami, you can also comment on that following the minister's answer.
Thank you for another question. In coming days, Russia will assume its second chairmanship. I believe that Japan's involvement in the Arctic Council will not change as far as Japan continues its dialogues and cooperation with the AC. And I consider it very important to tackle the common issues in the Arctic. At the same time, I recognize the importance of politicians taking leadership in finding solutions to the problems apart from the intergovernmental relations. For example, I participated the Conference of Parliamentarians of the Arctic region held in Ulan-Ude, the capital city of Republic of Buryatia, Russia in 2016. At the conference, I've re-acknowledged the fact that the Arctic is a human living space, and I think it is also important that politicians from different countries should take responsibility to cooperate together and to find solutions to the problems. I believe that Mr. Grímsson's motivation to establish the Arctic Circle stems from your philosophy that politicians shall take a leading role in solving a wide range of problems in the Arctic. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Dr. Tsumami, you want to add a comment on what you see Russia bringing to the chairmanship, or what you hope Russia will bring to the chairmanship?
Yes, our scientists has been working with Russia on the Arctic research for many years, and we have scientists and our young students working on the field in places like Sakha Republic and other Russian Arctic regions, already collaborating with the local institutes and scientists. And we hope that, and at least personally, I hope that the Russian leadership would encourage this kind of international cooperation in really pushing this science and Arctic science in the region. And especially this year, UN has started the Ocean Decade of Ocean Science. And I think this is a great opportunity for Russia's leadership in the Arctic to really bring the Arctic to the global and also ocean research community, to the importance of the Arctic research. And so I'm looking forward to the Russian leadership in this part.
Well, it certainly will be very interesting 2 years to observe how Russia conducts its chairmanship. Mm-hmm. But the next question might be the final question, given our time is running out, shows how the interest in this is now spread in different parts of the world. There's a question from Turkey regarding the security of the Arctic, which we haven't really discussed, the security issue, but that has increasingly come in one way or another on the Arctic table, brought, for example, forward by various representatives of the previous American administration. So the question from Turkey is if Japan could offer its support to Russia and the United States in helping to resolve some of their difficulties regarding future Arctic security and sustainability, given the fact that Japan is a long-standing ally of the United States, but you've also cooperated extensively with Russia. So you have an extraordinary role within this framework, Dr. Tsumami.
Mm-hmm. No, I think this is will be very important for Japan, actually, as a non-observer, as a state in the Arctic Council, that to really bring in the voice of observer states. Not only Japan, but including other states, to really keep the open and free and cooperative area of the circumpolar region. And I think if we can contribute to that, I think there will be a great opportunity for observer states to really help in creating that environment.
Well, just to demonstrate the interest in the role of Japan in these areas, let me put the final question on the screen, even if you only have 1 or 2 minutes to answer it. It's a question from the United Kingdom on the same subject, referring to the Arctic as a collaboration hotspot for Japan and Russia, and whether that will affect Japan's collaboration with other Arctic states. I gather from your previous answer you would say no, but if you want to make 1 or 2 comments on this question, which illustrate that both in Turkey and the United Kingdom, people are following the role of Japan vis-a-vis Russia and the United States in the Arctic. Dr. Tsunami.
Okay, all right. Well, yes, you answered the question, actually, for me. I think That we would not really be affected, of course, with working with other member states or Arctic nations in terms of our role in the Arctic, particularly through our science and cooperation. So I think that will be my answer. Thank you.
Great. I think you have, both of you, provided very interesting answers to these questions that come from many different parts of the world. We've had questions from Europe, United States, Russia, Asia during this short virtual meeting. But I want to conclude by thanking Your Excellency for your very interesting statement on the answers to the questions, and our great partner, Dr. Tsunami, for your participation in this virtual. Now, let me also draw the attention of the international audience to the fact that on the hour, in a few minutes, the second part of this virtual will take place. And there will be speakers from the United States. It will be chaired by Dr. Tsunami, and it will discuss the role of Japan and the United States in Arctic science. And what I find fascinating as an observer is that Japan, on the one hand, is a part of a trilateral consultation between China, Korea, and Japan on the Arctic, cooperating closely with Russia, as you have described, but also being the key ally of the United States, not only in Asia, but also in the world. And if that is not a formula for a fascinating, important role of Japan in the future of the Arctic, I don't know what such a formula would consist of. So I think the conclusion of this discussion, this dialogue, is that everybody interested in the Arctic and everybody interested in the geopolitical role of the Arctic in the 21st century has to observe Japan very closely. And Japan has to be aware that the world is looking to Japan to play an increasingly constructive and active role in the success of Arctic cooperation. And with these words, I thank both of you for your participation. I think thank the Sasakawa Peace Foundation for co-hosting this with the Arctic Circle. I thank the Minister for her long-standing commitment, and I'm looking forward to meeting both of you in Tokyo later this year. But above all, I want to thank the participants, the audience from a multitude of countries all over the world who have joined us for this hour. So stay tuned, wait a few minutes for the second Arctic Circle virtual on the role of Japan and the United States in Arctic science cooperation. Thank you.